everything related to it. And specifically, I'll be focusing on the design thinking process and how you can get started into this industry. My goal would be that at around 8 p.m., like by the end of this session, you have a stronger understanding of everything related to UX, what roles you can pursue after uh, breaking into this industry, and how to apply design thinking when you are building your own products. So first, I'm Shahzeb. I am currently a product designer at Quest. It's a high growth startup in Singapore. I'm also a design community advocate with ADP List, which is a global mentorship platform. And I'm a content creator on Medium and YouTube, where I share my design knowledge. Some of the organizations I've had the pleasure to work with include ATP List, Keep Tracking, and Quest most recently. And in the past, I've worked with many more. So for today, our session is actually broken out into these four phases. First is define, where I'll talk about what is UI, what is UX, and how are they separate. And then I'll just move on to what are the benefits of focusing on the UX part of your product. And then after we are done with that, I'll be talking about the design thinking process, what it is, and how you can use it for your products. And then lastly, how you and I'll be sharing some resources which I personally use to break into this industry and how you can do the same. So first, let's talk about what is design. And I know that you all must already have a general understanding of what design actually is, but I just want to make it more clearer. So first, like what is the difference between UX and UI? And by the way, this is like the mandatory question in every UX interview you will give for, like, for any role. They ask you, just tell us what is the difference between UX and UI. So UX is the theory part of design, while UI is the practical part. And to delve deeper, so UI is what the user sees, is the visual aspect of things, while UX is the interactions and the thinking which goes behind that interface. So once that is complete, let's just focus on the UX part of things, because I am pretty sure that the UI part is a separate topic, and most of you have already have a good understanding of it. So UX, user experience. So it's basically a commitment to developing products which focus on solving real user needs. And it is basically divided into four phases. First is user research. Then we analyze the research we have conducted. Then we define the scope of our problem, and then we execute it. Now, these are the general phases. They definitely have got their own um, processes among them. So while you're conducting like user research, so the primary user research uh, you execute is the competitor research, where you actually see that the product you are building, is there a competitor out there in the market currently? And if there is, then what you need to focus on is how your product can stand apart. What is your product's unique selling proposition? And once you have done that, then you analyze your research. So you analyze your insights and findings, you perform empathy mapping. And for empathy mapping, I'll be talking more about it later in the session. And then we also conduct customer journey mapping. And while we are defining the scope of our problem, we then delve into the ideation phase, where we think about possible solutions. Then once we have defined our solutions, we move on to prototyping, where we use some design tools like Figma and XD, and then we test it. And then lastly, in the execution phase, we pass off those designs to the stakeholder. Now, don't worry, I'll be talking about each of these in quite a bit of depth. Um, has someone unmuted? Okay, so if you have any questions, you can ask them at the end of the session, and if there's something wrong with my audio or video, you can just unmute and interrupt me if that is the case. So moving forward, uh, those were the general phases in UX. But let's talk about the definition of UX by its father itself. Don Norman was the founder of UX. Now, UX is a pretty new industry, but uh, but the term user experience is new. The profession itself is decades old. It was called HCI, human centered interaction. It's just been rebranded to UX because nowadays they like the digital experiences are very diverse. So Don Norman says that UX is all aspects of the end user's interaction with the company, its services and its products. So it's not just about the experience of the products, but it's also the experience of its services. Like food partner की सर्विस कैसी, उनके orders के time पे आते हैं, so जो उनके riders हैं, how is their, like how are their conduct. So there's service experience and the interaction with the company itself, like if there is some problem, then how is their customer support. So all of these ties into the term UX. It's not just about products. And so some of the common job titles which people who are practicing user experience have, they are either called UX designers, UI designers, interaction designers, motion designers, UX researchers, information architects, product designers, or UX engineers. Now, there are a lot of titles out there. So how are they different? What is so special about them? So to explain it best, Awais Imran is a very popular like Pakistani designer who also leads the UXCP. It's the biggest design community of Pakistan. So he recently shared this post on his Instagram account, and I thought that it was very relevant to our session today. So the difference between all those roles which I previously mentioned, the difference is in the specialization aspect of things. So product designer is smack dab in the middle of the specialization chart. So product designers are sort of unicorns. They can do a lot of things from the UI and the design part of things, and they can also do the business aspect of things. So if you specialize further down, then you can break into UX, where you just focus on the interaction and the research part of things, while UI designers just focus on the visual aspect of things. And if you super specialize, then even a UX designer role is broken down into UX researcher, interaction designer, and so on. So it's all about specializing further and further. And all entry level roles are basically like they are generalist roles. So product designer is something you should aspire to be when you are starting out. Now, what is the difference between user experience, customer experience, and service design? So as you can see, they all are uh, they all are related. Service design subsumes everything. So user experience is all about the interactions inside the product and its interactions, while customer experience is what the customer feels while using your product. So your user experience can be limited to a certain flow, can be limited to a certain aspect of your product, like booking or onboarding, while customer experience is the entire customer journey, right from the onboarding to solving the real problem it's supposed to do. So that is customer experience. And then there's service design, which subsumes both of these, and it also focuses on the behind the scenes activity, which makes sure that those services and those experiences are delivered as planned. So this is how these all are related. And then if you want to transition into UX, it's never too late. You can do it from any possible industry out there, either be it fashion, computer science, mechanical, electrical. The the best thing about UX is that it is multidisciplinary. So, so all of your current career skills are transferable. They can be used as a benefit for you and give you an edge over others. So you can transition if this is something that truly resonates with you, and you can learn the craft using boot camps and online course, formal education, or real projects. And then you also have to show what you have learned through creating a portfolio where you should focus on creating a focus and on the problem, on the process, on the product, and the results. So by doing all that, you can start transitioning into UX. Now that was all about defining what is user experience. Then why is it even important? So first is that it cuts down the development cost uh, by a mile, because if you are able to solve your customer problems, your target customer problems before development, the cost is very less as compared to once your product has been developed, has been deployed, it's in the user's hand, and then a problems arise. So that is a whole new expenditure. And so this is where UX helps you. It helps you to solve the problems before they become too large. Then they definitely increases your revenue. So if your interface is user friendly, if your users like to use it, if they're able to solve all their problems with ease, then your revenue will also increase. And it also increases customer loyalty, because if your experience is very friendly, then the users feel right at home there, they feel valued. So it builds customer loyalty as well, and it helps you in retaining those customers and even creating more ones through referrals. Then it also motivates your users to interact with your content. So like if I'm using like if I like I'm an avid user of Instagram. Why do I do that? Because it's lag free. It like there are minimal conflicts happening inside that interface. I know where everything is, and there's no blocker. That's why I am interacting with this core content for like 4 hours a day, which is a lot, I know. And then it also keeps you from wasting resources. So if you invest better in your UX design solutions, then you are able to avoid wasting human resources, time, and money. It also like the last part and the first part are actually interrelated. The last part actually makes it more clear, like how it keeps the cost down. So it avoids human resources. So like if your product has got a huge problem and it causes a multi-million-dollar problem, then you would have to hire lawyers and more stuff like that. So human resources, time, and money will be saved if your UX is better. So it has got huge consequences as well. Now just to demonstrate those previous points. So these are the three apps which I found suitable for this example. So first is of Sadape. So if you have not used it, then the major pull of this app is its simplicity, because in the fintech industry where money is involved, the customer is usually in stress. It's like that person is stressed because he's dealing with a lot of money. uh, Either he or she is paying for something. So the experience in itself, the feelings that user has got, they are not good. But the app itself, its entire design is based around simplicity and modern colors, so it makes you feel better. And that is why banking with their app has been easier as compared to other applications. And now the conventional banking apps are doing the same. They are redesigning their banking applications, like I think UBL recently did so. Then there is Starbucks. So Starbucks major pull is its personalization of how customers can actually customize their own orders. And this is actually a UX heuristic, where you allow the user the freedom to do whatever they want. So if the users feel like they have the opportunity to implement their own thinking, then they feel right at home and they are expected to use your product more often. Then there's Food Panda. So it's trackable. So your order, when it's en route, so you can see like when it will be delivered. So this entire experience keeps the user happy, and this is their major goal. So these three are examples of how UX is working for these brands and how they're utilizing it. So after all that, I hope that you can see that design is basically two things. First, it's all about problem solving, and second, it's an iterative process. So it's not like you do A, B, C, D, and till Z, and then it's over. No, it's A, B, then back to A or C and D. So it's all iterative. It's not a single line. Now we'll be talking about the process. And before I start, so design thinking is often called a process all over the internet. It's not a process, it's a philosophy. And why it's called a process is because it's majorly confused with design sprints, which is basically the same thing. But I'll tell you the difference once I'm done with design thinking and talking about the entire process. So just keep this in mind that design thinking is a philosophy, it's not a process. So this is what it consists of. It has got 5 phases. First is empathize, then define, then ideate, then prototype, and then test. Now we talked about these phases earlier on, like there are 4 phases back then when I was talking about UX phases. So I'll talk about each of these in greater detail. And I took this picture to demonstrate that even this process is iterative. It's not like you like for like first you do empathize, then you do define, then ideate, then prototype, then test, and then implement, and then that's okay. No, even after test you need to go back to define, or even after prototype you need to go back to empathize. So it's all iterative. Now let's talk about the first phase. It's empathy, empathize. So what we do in this phase is we want to understand who the user is and what are they doing. So like I am building a product, who will be using it, who am I designing for, who will use it in at like once I have completed everything, and what do they want to do in the first place, like what is their problem which they want to solve. And empathy or empathize is the entire foundation of this process, because this is what makes this entire philosophy human centered. You put the user at the middle, and then you start and progress with other steps. If anyone is muted, please mute yourself. um, so you understand problem solving by you understand problem being solved. So you find out about experiences and their motivations, and you focus on the user needs and their problems, like what they want to do and what problems are they facing. And in this phase, you can also perform a market research, which is again comparative analysis, what your competitors are doing. Now, at the end of empathy, what is the end product? That is of user personas. Now, personas are a summary of all your findings, and they act as a reference when you are designing in the later stages. So when you are ideating new solutions in the later stages, you don't want to come back to to all the questions and all the answers you got when you were researching. No, you want to look at the users you are designing, and that is what persona does. You gather all the feedback and all the problems and all the types of users you are designing for in the empathy stage. And what you do is you create fictional people profiles. You write a name, their age, where are they from, what are they doing. Everything is fictional, but it should reflect the people you interviewed. And then you write like what problem they are facing, and that problem needs to be a common problem which you observed in all the people you researched. So basically your personas need to represent all the people you researched, and then you can use this persona while ideating solutions. And the best thing is, like, you can add user stories, like what your user wants to accomplish. Like, I can make a story about a student who wants to uh, who wants to order something online, and that person doesn't like hasn't got a, a bank account. So that that student is a user story for a product like Sadape. So that is an example of persona. The second thing, the second phase is define, where you actually define the problem. Now, in the empathy stage, you define the type of user. In define, you define the problem, what problem that user is facing. Now, multiple users will be facing multiple problems. So, what you need to do is, once you have conducted all the user research, all the interviews, either remote or physical, or you can observe people while they while they use a certain product. Once you have done that, you then find out what was the most common problem which everybody had, and that would be your and those will be your core problems which you can focus on. Either you can try to tackle all of them through your solution, or just focus on the most primary one which has got the greatest impact. And once you have done that, then you need to gather ideas of, like, the different features and the different functions you can create to solve those problems. Now, this was the defining stage, where you actually find the core problems from your research. And once you have got the problems, you can now start ideating solutions for it. Now, in the ideation phase, you don't need to draw something or prototype something or use Figma or XD. No, it's all about just putting your thoughts on a piece of paper, maybe in words. Like you need to think out of box. Like, if this is the problem, like if I don't have a bank account, and if I am like underage, I cannot open a bank account, and I want to perform a Mastercard transaction. So how can I do that best? And if I don't know about other pay, like, what is keeping me? So you just need to create more and more questions and see, like, what is my blocker. And once you have those solutions, so there is a technique called crazy eights. What you do in that is that you set a timer of 1 minute, and you draw or write down 8 solutions for a problem. So it's just quick brainstorming, just to get you thinking. And then once you have got all your solutions, you pick the best one, and then you move on to the prototype phase. Now, this is an example of how you can ideate. So this is called a customer journey map. So these are all the user actions which I wrote down at the top. Then there was touch points, like what did it touch, their emotions which I observed while I was conducting the interview, and then I wrote down their pain points, like what difficulty they faced. And then at the end is the ideation phase, where I actually ideated what solution can I offer to solve that problem. So this is an example of how you can conduct ideation and keep track of everything. Now, once you have finalized what solution you want to focus on, you move on to the prototype phase. Now, prototyping is of 3 types: low fidelity, medium fidelity, and high fidelity. The low fidelity prototypes are also called sketches. So you just need a pen and paper for those, or a highlighter as well. And then there's medium fidelity, which is wireframing, and then high fidelity, which is proper mockups using Figma. So prototype is still an experimental phase. You are not developing something. It's pretty easy to chop and change things. And you investigate solutions which you have ideated from your ideate phase. So you create those in your prototyping phase, and then you test it with users and see if those solve the problem. If they don't, then you start all over again. So your goal is to find out the best solution. Now, earlier, you chose what solution you thought were best, but now you need to confirm it from the user as well, like if that was the best solution. So you need to show them something. You cannot just tell them that, what if we did this? They cannot visualize it. They are not designers, you are. So a prototype is an end product simulation tested with users, and what you find out is the problems they are facing with your prototype. What are the constraints they are facing, and how they are feeling, how they are behaving to what you made. So this is an example of a low fidelity sketch which I did for my case study. So it was just done with a pen and paper, and I just used a highlighter at a few places to highlight a few things. So this is just normal sketching, and didn't take too long. Uh, Wireframing, I think, is pretty straightforward. So in wireframes, you basically sketch out the layout of your app, or your solution, like where the thing would go, where the image would go, where the button would go, where the text would go, without putting in the information. Like you would just draw a rectangle where you need to show that an image will go. You just need to create or enter um, placeholder text where you want to demonstrate the text should go. So wireframes are just about um, giving or thinking about the layout of things, how you are going to uh, lay out. And then in the high fidelity, you use that wireframe and you start to put in information, you start to put in color and animations if you want. So a high fidelity prototype would replicate your end product, what you want to develop, about 90%. So your high fidelity prototype is what you will use to test with your users. And these are a few tools which you can use. Sketch is only for Mac. InVision is I think available for both. I personally use Figma, and XD is also a popular choice. Now, once you have got the prototype, you need to test it with users. Now, you need to explore your hypothesis. Now, what is hypothesis? You need to explore the assumptions you made about the users. So you made assumptions like, if this is the solution, you already have like an idea of yourself. Like, if I show this to my user, what or how will they react? Now you need to test it. Like, you need to test that hypothesis with the user by showing your prototype and then seeing like if they react in that way. If they don't, you need to write it down. If they do, then you need to write it down. So there are two types of testing you need to do, or the feedback you need to collect, both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is um, well, I can first explain the quantitative thing. So it's just about numbers, facts, and figures, like how long it took for them to figure out that, how long they took to complete the onboarding. Now, qualitative is um, are the observations, like if they faced a problem, what did it do? So you need to write it down. Now, qualitative is um, I'm lying on the word. So it's the tangible things, what you observed. So you write it down. Quantitatives are the figures. Then usability testing. Now usability testing is a type of testing. I think I have got a slide here. So and then when you get the results, those results will be refining your problem statement, and then you can better understand the users and get a deeper understanding of their problems, because now you know like what exactly they want to solve. And again, this is an iterative process. So after testing, you need to go back to the defining phase, and then again. uh, then let's talk about usability testing. So you'll be doing this while in the testing phase. So how easy it is to use, this is the general question you need to observe. You need to test your hypothesis with real users, and you need to see that if the users can complete the tasks. If they can, then you can define where user faces problem and confusion. And again, this data needs to be used in iterations, and it's a good practice if you have a checklist of the different heuristics you want your product to fulfill. Now, design heuristics are a separate thing. They are about they are, I think, one kind of uh, very popular one. It's called the Jakob Nielsen's heuristics. So I think there are 10 of them out there. So we have got a checklist of those 10 heuristics, and you test the user if all of those are met. So this is usability testing. Now that was all about the process. If you have any questions, you can write it down in the comment section. I will reach out and I will answer them after I'm done. Then, how to prepare for this industry? How did I do it? So again, I am a self-taught product designer, so I used all the learning platforms out there. Coursera, Udacity, and Udemy were the primary places I learned from. Then LinkedIn Learning and Pluralsight, they have got good courses out there, but they are very basic in nature. But what they do best is they help you revise everything you learn in your previous courses. So it's good to refresh your concepts. And Interaction Design Foundation, they are the best in the industry courses out there, and I've taken a few of them, but I plan to take a lot more. And then you need to network a lot if you are a designer. Just knowing the skills and the processes is not enough. Design is a very collaborative profession. You need to collaborate with a lot of people of different skill sets, either be it technical or business. So you need to reach out to everybody you can. ADP is for mentorship from industry professionals. If you book a session with them, you can ask how to structure your own designer journey, and they can give you good pointers as well, and it's free to use. Then LinkedIn, I think, needs no introduction. And then UXGP is a community in on Facebook. It's free to join. It's got about 12,000 members, I think, and they routinely post uh, about jobs in Pakistan and some learning resources as well. So these three are the things which I use most. And then the key things you need to work on, first of all, is design fundamentals. You need to get your fundamentals right. You need to have a strong foundation of the discipline. For that, you need to watch a lot of videos. You need to read a lot of articles. You need to get your foundations right. Then you need to understand the impact of design, and you also need to want to create an impact, because it's actually very apparent when you're interviewing for a role. So they can see, like, if you are really passionate about design, if you're really passionate about creating an impact through your work. So you need to get that right as well. And the best way is to read about case studies of how products have gone on to change lives. And then you need to get your design processes. Now we talked about the design philosophy, design thinking. Okay. So what's the difference between design thinking and design sprint? So design sprint is basically the same thing which I talked about. So you can also say that I talked about design sprint. But the difference is that in design sprints, you need to do everything which I said. Like, if you are in the empathy stage, you need to create personas. You need to do it. There's no alternative. If you are in the define stage, you need to create your problem statements. There's no alternative. If you are ideating, you need to do all those customer mapping, journey mapping. You need to do it. It's a recipe. A design sprint is a recipe, and then it's a prototyping and everything. So the design sprint is a recipe, while design thinking is a philosophy. It's just a guide. These are the 5 phases you need to do. They are iterative. What you do inside of those phases is up to you. So it's up to you to design your own process. That is design thinking, and it's one of the most popular one out there. Every innovative company uses it. While design sprint is a relatively newer process, is based on a book of design sprint by Jake Knapp, and it's used by industries to ideate solutions quickly for problems. So it's a well structured process you can follow. It's a recipe you can follow if you don't want to create your own process. Now, lastly, the best resource you can use are books. I know it's they seem boring, but they are the most essential thing for designers to learn from, because designers apparently love to write, and these are the best source you can learn from. Now, I have mentioned a lot of books here, but the best three are Hooked, like by Near Eyal, Don't Make Me Think by Steve Crook. It's all about web usability. And the third one is The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman, which like who I quoted before. So these three things are are an absolute essential for every designer to read. And then you can go along and read all of these other books. They are pretty amazing as well. So at the end, is UX even a good fit for you? So a UX design may be a good fit for you if you are creative and analytical, if you like to solve problems using creativity. If you want a decent salary, I think that's a given. We all want that. You want job security. You want to branch out in the future. Like I'm currently a product designer, but I eventually will branch out into something at the intersection of technical side of things and design, because I have a technical background, and I enjoy coding as well. So I have the opportunity to branch out. If you are from a business background and you enjoy that as well, but you enjoy design, so you can go into design management. And this is possible for every other creative profession, or um, basically any profession. And then you can also go freelance. There are a lot of free freelance opportunity for UX designers. And lastly, you have the opportunity to make a big difference, because you are defining products, you are building products which people will eventually use. I currently have made a product which is used by 45,000 people. I know that's not a big number as compared to big tech companies, but I am still very proud of it. Like 45,000 people are using my products. So you can make a big difference through this profession. So a great UX designer has an incredibly broad skill set that encompasses a variety of soft skills, industry skills, and crossover skills. So soft skills, I think that's a given. Communication, management, leadership, industry skills are what I talked about previously. Your design related skills, and then crossover skills are what you can transfer from your own interests. And if you have all of these, then you are a definite good fit for being a UX designer. Now, I am open for for questions. We took 45 minutes. That is what I was going for. We have 15 minutes for Q&A. And okay, I'm looking at the comment section. Okay. First is for UI UX Photoshop, is it necessary? For UI UX, no, it's not necessary. For it is good to learn, because when you are designing prototypes, when you are creating prototypes, you need to add some graphics, and Photoshop is used when you want to create those graphics. And also you will need to create a portfolio for your projects, and on that portfolio you also need graphics to represent your projects. So for that, yes, you do need to have a basic understanding of Photoshop, and primarily I would say focus on the masking aspect of things, of creating mockups. Then there is, as a front end developer, how important is it to master UI UX? How it can help us to get a better position in future? Like we can go to product design more swiftly by this combination of front end dev plus UX. Hamza Sajid. Excellent question. I love to perform front end development myself. So front end developers who have a strong understanding of UI UX, they are highly sought after, because companies can actually get two professionals in one. They don't need to hire an out and out UXer if you are very good at UX as well. So it definitely makes you stand out a lot. It actually makes you a unicorn of some sort. And there's actually a role of itself. It's called UX engineer. UX engineers work at the intersection of design and front end development. So if you are very much interested in UX, if you want to pursue it, then and you also want to keep on doing the front end work, then UX engineering is something you can look into. Is anyone here UI UX designer? Well, I am, Sufyan. And Farwa Sheikh, being a UX designer, how and where to find the dedicated users to give feedback and for conducting interviews online? Okay, so if you're just starting out, if you're not conducting research for a company, your best source are your friends and family. And luckily for me, I have a huge family, so I use them. But your friends are also a good resource because they are general users. You don't need strangers to research. You can do it on your friends as well and your family. And once you are backed by a big organization, if you are a company's representative, then you can definitely post about it online, on LinkedIn, on Facebook groups. There are dedicated groups for this as well. And maybe your company has allocated of a certain amount of funds for research, so you can distribute that as well as an incentive. And all of this can be conducted online and through any platform. And user testing is also a platform where you can actually like create a prototype and then give it for people to test. So user testing as well. Then Mohammed Salman Jamil, what will be the next tool? Any idea? Like previously, it was Adobe PS. Now these days, Adobe XD and Figma. Will it replace front end development because it can generate all the codes of JS, CSS, HTML? Okay. Uh, Adobe XD and Figma are not going anywhere anytime soon because they are improving themselves rapidly and according to user needs. But about replacing front end development, I think it has been replaced by a lot of tools already. The drag and drop builders and Webflow as well. But I know that Webflow is pretty technical still. But again, it's easier now. So maybe 10 days, maybe 10 years into future, front end development will be much easier, but not anytime soon. And if you want to know about the scope of UX, then I think for any creative field, it's very difficult to automate. So it's got a huge uh, life left as compared to some other jobs. In Pakistan, UI UX scope, it's growing. Previously it wasn't that big, but nowadays, since there are a lot of startups now, I can name a few: Airlift and Food Panda, Daraz even. So they are now getting more focused on the UX side of things, and they're hiring as well. So it's growing, but it's still not a lot. Remote opportunities are still a very good option for you, where you can earn good money and you can do it from the comfort of your home. So um, it's definitely an option. Is coding necessary in UI UX designing? No, no, definitely not. UI, if I like the entire process which I shared previously, coding was not involved in any of those things. Like, you don't need coding in research, you don't need coding in ideation, in definition, in prototyping, in testing. No, so coding is not at all necessary. How much it take time to become an average UX developer? So I am going to answer as a UX engineer. So UX, well, I've been in the industry for 2 years, and I still don't consider as myself as the absolute expert, because there is no such thing. So, but if you want to be a average UXer, I think 2 years is enough. If you are completely committed to learning and practicing and working alongside. And development is a different animal itself. And if you talk about front end development nowadays, it's not just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It's also frameworks like Vue and React and Angular. So if you're very dedicated, then 2 years at least, or three, for becoming an average UX developer. then please suggest the best freelancing website, particularly for UI UX designers. Well, stay clear of Fiverr, because Fiverr is not good for UXers. I started from Fiverr, but those roles quickly go out of scope. They breach into the web design part where they expect HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So stay clear of Fiverr, and they also don't pay you up for your efforts. So Upwork is the best way to go, but for that you need to first of all know your skill. You need to have an online portfolio of projects, then you can apply, and then you can get selected. And just I can share it a bit. So while I was working at Keep Truckin, so they actually hired a few people as contractors from Upwork. So Upwork is is a good marketplace. Can you recommend start courses for the subject, please? Okay, so for Coursera, there are three courses which I will absolutely suggest. First is by CalArts. It's the UI UX specialization. If that specialization is good for your visual design skills, then there is the UC San Diego's interaction design specialization. It's got 8 courses. I am still completing that. So that one is a very comprehensive thing, and so that is for the UX side of things, while the CalArts thing is for the UI side of things, and then the Google design, the UX design thing is good if you want to refresh everything at the end of completing these two. So this is one roadmap which I will suggest from Coursera specifically. First, complete the CalArts one. Once you have got a momentum in design skills, then you can move on to the interaction design specialization by UC San Diego. It's got 8 courses, and once you are done with all of them, you can jump into the Google UX design certificate, and then I think you will be well off. So, can we make full static websites with UI UX like a portfolio website? Full static website with UI UX. You cannot build websites from UI UX. You can only design them. For to build them, to make them, you still need to use HTML, CSS, or some framework. But I designed my own portfolio. I can actually just share it quickly in the chats. It's got some case studies as well, so you can see how to structure them. So I created this portfolio. Designed this first on Figma, and then I created this using a specific language. At the time, I only knew HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, so I made use of that. So, which language is best for UX design, and which framework is best? UX design does not require any language, and it doesn't require any framework. UX design is free of coding. It doesn't require coding. But if you're asking me from a developer point of view, then just focus on JavaScript, learn its fundamentals and the advanced thing, and then jump into either Vue or React, whatever suits you best. But React is more popular. Angular, stay clear of it. It's very complex for starters. And Node or React or Flutter. Now, Node is for backend. It's not for front end, so it's got no room to talk about here. React is for front end, so you can use React. And front ends for mobile devices. So again, I will reiterate: no coding language is required for UX design. Designers are not developers. It's a fine line. Can you give link in Coursera that you tell? It will take some time for me to share it, but I can. Uh, what can I do? I can share the names of the.
शाहजेब, you can share with me और मैं community में share कर दूँगी.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Okay, and then lastly, there's a question: can you describe your designing process and what methods you follow? Okay, so I generally follow the design thinking process, but the philosophy, not the sprint, and I just make it my own in that regard. Like I still create personas. I still create uh, customer journey maps and everything, but I create something more additional things as well, like user flows. So yeah, um, I use the design thinking philosophy, and then my process is still not fixed. I change it upon the scenario. And if you talk about the process I follow with my work, so they have a set requirement of using design sprints, and that's what I use there. um okay, seems like there are no questions more, and it's 57. So I think we can call it a day if there are no additional questions. Thank you for being an awesome audience. I enjoyed.
Shahzeb, can you also share the links in the UD group?